morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. I can say good morning to Dan Cullen, to Gary Mew, and to Mark Whiting. I've already seen those in the chat as well. Jamie Guzman over on Instagram. Matt Terry's here as well. Loads. Luke B is over on Instagram as well. Loads and loads of people. I can't run a diary, as it turns out. So first of all, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I told everyone last week that I was going to do a 4-day week. I'm actually doing a 3-day week because I'm at a funeral tomorrow. So there's part one. The other thing I told everyone last week was that I was going to be launching a new book called Beyond Fuel, and I was going to do it on Monday. Monday was a bank holiday, so it actually came out yesterday. If you would like to grab a copy, it's completely free. Those of you that are already in the WhatsApp group will know this already because I've already sent it to you. But if you're not, have a look in the chat. Let me just label it. There we are. You can see that in the chat now. So you can get a free copy of the book. It's a PDF. It's an ebook, basically. You can download it, read it to your heart's content. Or there's an audio version. If you'd like to listen to that, you can do that. You can do that over on our buymeacoffee.com/demolition news, or you can just go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it is now. Just type in Demolition News Radio. You'll find it there too. It's freely available. I think the book itself is about 5,500 words. I think the podcast version is about 35 minutes or so. So if you've got yourself a bit of a journey coming up and you fancy something to listen to, there you are. Let's say good morning to Peter McKenna. Morning all. I hope everyone is doing having a good day up to now. Yeah, it's been good so far. And Jim Turner is here as well, so we can actually start the show. Morning, Peter. Morning, Jim. And let me press your respective buttons. There's Peter's button, and there is Jim's button. Good morning, one and all. Yeah, loads and loads to get through. As I say, there is a free book. If you have a look in the chat, it's called Beyond Fuel. You've heard it done by me, but it's better done by our AI audio. So if you'd like to have a good listen to that, you can do so just wherever you get your podcast, basically. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Just as soon as I remember which button to press, it's this one. Yeah, Peter McKenna says, that's no good. My button doesn't show up on LinkedIn. It doesn't. No, the link between StreamYard, which is the podcast or the platform that I use to broadcast, its links with LinkedIn are not exactly smooth. Just one other thing. If you think I'm set in a slightly different place than I normally do, like slightly over to one side, there's a reason for that. There's a dog under the desk and she's refusing to move and she's snoring quite loudly. So I don't really want to move her. Anyway, it is Wednesday, the 28th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, we're heading down under to take a closer look at the XCMG XE500 excavator, Caterpillar's timely built-to-be rebuilt philosophy. We're going to revisit that. We're off to Scandinavia with a JCB wheel loader, and we're powering back to Bauma with a hydrogen-fueled machine from Manitou. Plus, I'd like you to stick around for this because I do think this applies to some of you guys. In my morning monologue today, employer's dream, employee's nightmare. What happens when some workers care too much while others care too little? I'm sure you've all encountered it. But before we get to all that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine. Now, as it stands at the moment, Chris Ford is in a 6-point lead. That's 2 wins. He's in the lead. He's not here today. He's at the hospital having tests. So this is an opportunity possibly for Dan Cullen to claw back 3 points and get even closer. We've got one more of these. We're back on Friday. So if Dan wins today, and if Dan wins on Friday, it could well be a tie. Jonathan Duras has just arrived. Good morning to you, Jonathan. Yes, my dog is comfortable listening to me, although she's quite deaf. She's quite old, 14 years old. She's quite deaf, doesn't hear a word I say, although that may just be because she's female and has selective hearing. Gary Muirhead says, getting away early today to celebrate my wife's 50th birthday, then off to Turkey tomorrow. And no, the teeth are not getting overhauled. I was expecting you to come back, Gary, with a nice set of pearly whites and a new head of hair. A big mane of hair. I'm slightly disappointed that's not going to be the case, because I was looking forward to the photographs. But have a great time and wish your other half a very happy birthday from everybody here as well. Yes, Mystery Machine. Should we do Mystery Machine? I think we probably should. Let's go here. Just realised I hadn't pressed the question of the day button, but I've done it now, so there you are. Right, okay, so we're looking for make and model on this, if you would be so kind. What have you got on that? We're looking for, as always, a make and a model. Current model? That's all I can tell you at the moment, really. Steve Williams has just arrived. Morning, Steve. How are you doing, my friend? Hope you're fitting well. How are things up in well, I'll ask you, both you and Gary, how are things in Body, Scotland right now? Let us know. That's the Mystery Machine, make a model, if you would be so kind. And I'll tell you what, Steve's already answered. He's already answered the question of the day, but I haven't even reminded you of it yet. So let me do that, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah, our question of the day today, nice and easy, because it is Wednesday and I'm a little hard of thinking. The question, quite simply, is this: are you an early bird or are you a night owl? I'm assuming it's an age thing, but I've changed. I always used to be a night owl, quite happily sit up, even work all the way through the night, which you'll be hearing about in the morning monologue as well. But now, 9:30 in the evening, nodding off, and I tend to do my best work first thing in the morning. But what about you? Are you a night owl or are you an early bird? Let's have a very quick look. We're going to go back to here. Steve says, night owl. Also work the night shift all the time. Yeah. Some people can. I can't. Peter McKenna says, early bird and a night owl. Up at 6 a.m., bed at 2 a.m. Depending how ill I am at times. I can be up for days on end. No, I can't be doing that. I need my beauty sleep. As you can tell, it's not working very well. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen, early bird, up at 3:40 a.m. Very precise. Now, Mystery Machine had lots and lots of guesses. What have we got here? Jonathan Dilras reckons it could be a cat. D6E. It's a good shout, but it is not right. Jim Turner is going for basically the equivalent. But from the Komatsu stable, the Komatsu D61, it's not one of those. It's not the D61 PX either. And it's not a cat D3, Dan Cullen. Let me show you a little bit more. There you are. A smidgen of cab. Does that help? Does that help in any way, shape, or form? Keep the guesses coming in, and don't forget, we are looking to find out whether you are an early bird or a night owl. We're going to be right back in a moment. We're going to Australia to look at a Chinese excavator, because that's how we roll. Now, very quickly, Peter McKenna's just said, what do you think of the Moonlander dozer? Peter, very good question. Peter sent this over to me on our WhatsApp group last night, but I was out and about, and where I was, the coverage was as sketchy as anything. So I got like a couple of frames and then nothing, a couple of frames, then nothing, couple of frames and nothing. I am going to sit down now. I'm back in the office. I'm going to sit down and have a proper look. And hopefully I may even be able to grab that and share it with you at some point in the future. Gary is going for Mystery Machine. He's sticking with Komatsu, and he's going for the Komatsu D71. It's not the D71. In fact, let me narrow it down a little bit more. It's not even a Komatsu. Jonathan Duras reckons it's a Cat D10. It is not. And yes, this Moonlander dozer is UK built. Yeah. Dan Cullen is going for the Komatsu D375A. It is not one of those. It's not a Komatsu at all. There is a little bit more. There's a wee bit of undercarriage just to whet your appetite. while you're figuring that out, let's go to Australia to look at a Chinese excavator like this.
Hi, I'm Nathan Fennemer, and this is the XCMG XE500 LC. Built for the toughest Australian conditions, the XE500 LC packs serious power. With a 336 kilowatt Cummins QSX12 engine, this powerhouse of an engine is finely tuned to the machine, allowing consistent digging power through a range of material density. Durability is another design feature of the XE500 LC. With the boom and arm being reinforced with thickened plates, the undercarriage was also designed with harsh conditions in mind, with a reinforced guide frame and heavy-duty track shoes. The XE500 LC also comes ready to work, with lockable isolators, emergency stops, reverse camera, beacon, Australian standard handrails, and front guard, all as a standard. And for those jobs where you require an attachment, the XE500 LC also features dual auxiliaries from factory as a standard. A comfortable operator's environment sits at the centre of this 50-ton beast, with full touchscreen display, comfortable joystick controls and air suspension seat. The XE500 LC also features full climate control and AM/FM radio with Bluetooth. To find out why the XE500 LC is built tough for Aussie conditions, visit your local Brooks Equipment dealer.
That fella sounded like a Brit. Long way from home, but yeah, fantastic looking machine. We have a winner. We have a winner, and things are getting very interesting. So, what have we got? We've got Jonathan Duras reckons it could have been a Dresler Lugong TD50. It's not one of those. Jim Turner got a little bit closer by saying a Shantway dozer, but Dan Cullen has got the right answer. It is indeed a Shantway SD60. That's what it is, and I can prove it to you. Let me get Dan out of the way. There you are. It's back on the stage. There it is in all its glory, the Shantway SD60. So we have one more match to come. That's on Friday. As it stands at the moment, Dan Cullen is trailing by 1 win. So Chris Ford, I know you're at the hospital, but if you do get to hear this, if you can hold out, or if somebody else gets the win on Friday, you win this month. If Dan Cullen manages to win on Friday, I'll have to find two prizes, won't I? That's just the way it works. What have we got? Gary Muirhead belatedly going for the Hyundai HD 130. It's not one of those. I'm sure he hit that button long before I started telling everyone what it was. So Dan Cullen, 3 points to you. Well done. Congratulations. And we can get on with the show. Let me get that out of the way. We're still looking to find out whether you are early birds or night owls. We're going to be talking about machines being built to be rebuilt, more specifically Caterpillar, right after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Dan Cullen says, Komatsu and Shantway have similar cab designs. They do indeed. They do indeed. Right, okay. So what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Built to be rebuilt. I think this is the future. I realise that, some manufacturers that are very, very keen to sell lots of shiny new machines. I'm sure that won't sit comfortably with them, but Caterpillar seem quite content with it. Built to be rebuilt, Cat style.
We found that the Cat mining trucks are certainly built to be rebuilt, and it's worked out well for us.
When you buy something from Caterpillar, you're able to rebuild it numerous times, and you'll get multiple lives out of it.
It's a tough environment. You really need to be making the most out of that investment. So with the whole design of the Caterpillar equipment, they can get the productivity out of the machine and get to a stage in its life where we can pretty much rebuild that machine and get it back to like new performance again.
The advantage of Cat components is they are built to be rebuilt. This enables the customer to have a lower cost of ownership in their operation.
One of the things that is important to discuss in a rebuild is the fact that you're not scrapping that machine. There's a lot of reusable components. When you're rebuilding a machine, you're actually repurposing a lot of that metal.
Using the genuine Cat parts, we can then pick and choose whether we use new or reman, whatever's going to get us the best cost and the best life out of the component. And it helps us be able to push that component a bit further and try and get more life out of it.
When we're doing a component or a machinery build, it's a really good solution that works for us and the customer.
The fact that they get to get used again, and we're still getting the life of a new part out of a Cat reman.
By using Caterpillar reman, that iron is going to be in a circular economy where it's being rebuilt several times, and we're getting the benefit with a like new product each and every time.
We use Cat reman parts in most rebuilds, particularly things like engines. We actually will provide our overhauler with a overhaul task document where it will specify using reman parts in certain aspects. So it will still get the life out of the component that we require, and it's a better cost for us.
Using Cat reman parts and components in our rebuilds makes sense in the way where we have the confidence in the warranty that Caterpillar stand behind. We want to make sure that our quality is of the highest standard, and our customers are seeing that through the value and through the life of that component as well.
I think it's important that the machines are capable of being rebuilt multiple times, having the machines keep on running without having expensive downtime. It's good value for the customers because they get to keep a nice consistent fleet, so being able to get more than one life out of their machine adds a tremendous amount of value for them.
Bear with me 1 second. I'm just adding something over to the chat because somebody just asked me for it. There you are. That is the link to the free book, Beyond Fuel. Right, let's go back to, yes, our question of the day, which is, are you an early bird or a night owl? Jim Turner says, both. Depends on what's happening and what's needed. Yeah, I can do an all-nighter if the need arises. I'd rather not. Don't mind an early start. Where I really struggle is where they come back to back, where you have a late finish and an early start. That really does screw me up. Jonathan Duress says, early bird, but sometimes a night owl. Can't beat an early morning sunrise. I have to admit, it's my, I wouldn't say it's my happy place because I don't mind being surrounded by the family, but Sunday morning, I'm usually up a good 2 hours before everybody else on a Sunday morning. And that bit of peace and quiet just to let the world slowly seep in, quite like that. Dan Cullen says, in the morning, brains on fire, thoughts are floating and adding people on his groups. Good to hear. And Peter McKenna says, you're going to burn out soon. Listen, it is an issue. It is an issue. And speaking of burnout, stick around for the morning monologue because there's a fair degree of that as well. Jonathan Duras quite rightly says rebuilding will play a bigger part in the future, in my opinion. Not just your opinion, Jonathan. It's my opinion. It's definitely the opinion of Jim Turner as well. I think that is going to be almost as big a revolution as our change in power. Really do. And Dan Cullen says, great idea. Rather than spending a fortune on new kit, update the older kit as well. Totally agree. Totally agree. One thing that did come out with that, and I realize that Caterpillar is a premium brand. I think there is a tendency to think of built to be rebuilt. The remanufacturing as a one-off. You run a machine for 5, 6, 7 years. You chop it into the dealer. They rebuild it, put a new engine in it, new driveline or whatever it might be, and it goes back to work. You could do this multiple times. Yeah, I realize this is a very, very slight detour. I have a pair of shoes that have been back to the maker. When I bought them, had them remade, they sent them back. I wore them for about a decade, and they've remade them again. So I'm on the third life of a pair of shoes, and they're still going strong. It makes economic sense, and they're a fantastic pair of shoes as well. Peter says it's okay burning the candle at both ends, but it can all come crashing down. Yeah, absolutely. And there's Steve saying exactly the same thing. I had burnout on Monday, just this week. So timely. Only so much you can be pushed. And that, as I say, that is very much the tone of today's morning monologue. So let me rush through what we've got left of the show so that I can get to that. We're going up to Scandinavia in a moment, but we're going with JCB. So we went to Australia to see a Chinese machine, and now we're going to Scandinavia to see an English machine. Listen, I don't make the rules, I just show it. Here we go.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Hey, I've already keyed this in, so here's a JCB 419 doing its thing up in Scandinavia.
I work for Fiskomølle. We are situated in Norway, and I pack mineral fertilizers. This machine I've had since 2019. I think we ordered this one, the 419 machine. We use them for plowing snow when that is necessary, lifting pallets with a fork, but mostly we just use them to lift these ready packed fertilizer bags. The ease of operation is what I like best about them. It's just easy. It's like any office, really. It's comfortable sitting in these machines. Seats are perfect. It's a very good suspension on it. It's a very sturdy machine. This machine is so strong. I'm not near hitting the limits of what it can do. This 19 machine is like a stallion. It's a very aggressive machine. I love it. It's good size because it's quite narrow here. So it's not too big. It's a fast machine. We fill up a car in about 15 minutes. So that's poof, 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 finished. We are picking up 4 bags of 600 kilos. That's 2.4 tons, which it has absolutely no problem lifting. The ease of the joystick is just one smooth flowing movement, and using the rear view camera, which is an excellent option. I have perfect visibility all around the machine. The worst days when we're loading a boat, we go 18-20 hours a day, and that's tiring. The machine has no problem. It's me who's having a problem. It's a perfect machine for me. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
There you are. There you are. I'd love to see an English person do that in Danish or something. Bet they couldn't. Jim Turner says it should be the future. We're talking about our built to be rebuilt, but the world model is hang on a minute. But the world model is UK keep us the people as consumers. Yeah. I mean, he clarifies it here when I can find it. Rebuilding doesn't make the right people rich. There is a very great degree of truth in that. Obviously, the people that benefit most from built to be rebuilt are the customers, not the manufacturers. Dan says that JCB machine looks tidy and handy and agile. It does indeed. Jonathan Duras, very impressive. Great attachment. Yeah, I guess if you're loading 4 bags at once, you need something that can lift 4 bags at once. Why the hell not? Jim Turner says, same with agriculture and food. They won't do the right thing and use locally produced food. There's no way for the middleman to make them easy money. Same with machines. Yeah, it's a slightly jaded way of looking at the world, but it's also quite right way of looking at the world. I think you're absolutely on the money there, Jim. I think we've got one more film to bring you. We're going back to Bauma in a moment with Manitou. Back after this. Yeah, on the day that we officially, you guys probably saw it yesterday, but on the day that we officially launch our half-hour podcast and our book, Beyond Fuel, it seems only appropriate that we should go and have a look at a hydrogen machine. So we're going back to Bauma with the fine folks at Manitou to do precisely that.
Good morning, I'm Kevin Arnoux, in charge of construction markets and products for Manitou. Reducing our carbon emission is a key part of our CSR reduction strategy. So we are expanding our range of electric products and innovating with hydrogen telehandler concepts. We are showcasing as well electric telehandlers, MUP, masted forklift truck today. And they have multiple benefits. It's zero emission, it's a noise and energy cost reduction, and of course, they provide high performance. The next challenge will be the hydrogen supply and storage on a job site, but it could be a real game changer and provide fast recharge for construction users. And it's a modular solution, so typically it's a full electric machine fitted with a lithium-ion battery, and it can be recharged both by the diesel or by the hydrogen fuel cell range extender. So come and see us on Manitou booth at Bauma.
Smart. Gary Muirhead just says we've turned into a throwaway nation. Ain't that the truth? In so many aspects of our daily lives as well. I don't get me wrong. I don't mind if I'm going off on holiday. I don't mind the odd trip to Primark. Just get half a dozen new T-shirts for about £1.50 each. They're disposable, basically. Is that really a good idea? Should we be wearing disposable clothing? Because somebody's had to go to the trouble of making that and shipping it and creating emissions and stuff. And I'm just going to wear it while I'm on holiday. Wear it in the swimming pool, possibly. Wear it in the sea to keep the sun off my pasty skin, and then throw it in the bin. Is that really a good idea? Mother Earth, I apologise for my my habits. They're not good. That's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. If you are working on site today, if you do have the time, please listen to the morning monologue, because it is kind of about you. It starts about me, but it's kind of about you. And don't forget, you can pick up that free copy of Beyond Fuel. Have a look in the chat. You'll find the details there. Or just go to demolitionnews.com. I think it's the lead story today. If you have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after this. Without realizing it, I inherited many traits from my father. Respect for women, distrust of politicians, a love of football and fishing. But there's one trait I sometimes wish he hadn't passed down: his work ethic. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no problem with hard work, although I realise that's a relative term because I sit here on my arse all day either talking to myself or tapping a keyboard. My dad would work all the hours that God cared to send. Early start, he'd be there. Late finish, he'd be there too. Weekends and bank holidays, yep, he'd be there again. And I used to mock him for it until I realised I was doing it too. So let me take you back to the beginning of 1989. I was working on a magazine called Plant Manager's Journal, and I'd just been promoted to deputy editor. Now, there were various people that worked across both Plant Manager's Journal, PMJ, and our sister magazine, Contract Journal. But PMJ was the publication that paid my wages. So PMJ was my baby. There was an unwritten rule at PMJ that once a month, the entire team would gather in the office for our production day. That was a day in which various threads and elements of the magazine would be pulled together. The day on which we could do our final checks, the final opportunity to make any changes or improvements before the magazine went off to the printer. In the field of publishing, production day was the last chance saloon. It was sacrosanct. Now, my problems didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual thing. One month, I found myself alone on production day. My editor, who was also my boss, had apparently double booked himself, and wherever he needed to be was far more important apparently. Not a big deal, I thought. I'd seen a magazine through production day plenty of times by then. But then the same thing happened the next month, and then the month after that. And even then, I don't think I twigged. The penny finally dropped about 11:15 one night. I was in the office completely alone. The entire building was in darkness, aside from the light above my desk. First, I read through the leader column, which the editor usually wrote, but which on this occasion he left me to do. Then I read through the news section. Everything was entirely familiar because I'd written every single word of it. Then I read through the features. All of those were mine too. I finished with our old back page gossip column, which once again was entirely written by me. As part of my final polishing, I actually changed a few of the bylines on stories. So rather than every single story saying Mark Anthony reports, a few now read PMJ reports. Even while it was dawning upon me that I was being taken for a mug, I was trying to make the magazine appear to be the work of more than just one person. Now, I left a few months later, but the fact that it still rankles some 35 years later just goes to show the depth of anger I felt at having my enthusiasm, passion, and commitment exploited by a boss who, frankly, didn't give a toss. Now, aside from the fact that I was working on a construction magazine at the time of all of this, you might be wondering what all this has to do with demolition and the construction world of today. Well, I can tell you that there are many in our industry that are suffering the same fate literally as we speak. Men and women whose passion and commitment is being used against them, while their peers and superiors coast along and take the credit. There are thousands, possibly tens of thousands in the sector that take their role every bit as seriously as I used to. Each machine, each site, each project is their baby, and they will fight to nurture that baby all the way to adulthood, even if those around them are willing to let that baby die. You can spot them a mile away, particularly if you're up with the lark. They're the first on site, not just today, but every day. Keen to get a head start, just in case something goes wrong, which it inevitably will. They're the ones that do the pre-start checks with an almost religious regularity, and often they don't just do their own. They encourage others to do likewise, or they do it for them, because that's how they were taught. And that encouragement doesn't end there. They rally the team around specific tasks. They offer guidance to the younger and less experienced members of the crew. They are the captain of the team in everything but name. And that's fine. In fact, it's better than fine. They're an invaluable person to have about the place. Need someone to work late? They are the go-to. Need someone to take on additional responsibility? You know you can rely on them. Need someone to learn and understand a new process or some new piece of equipment? Who better than the person that spends their Who better than the person that spends their days hard at work and their evenings teaching themselves how to do their job better? But there's a problem. In fact, there's a double-edged problem that cuts them from above and cuts them from below. The site manager, the real captain of the team, recognizes that leadership, that commitment, and that determination. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, that site manager begins to step into the background. Where he or she used to walk the site and check in on progress and the people bringing it about, they now spend more and more time in the warmth and relative comfort of the site cabin. On the rare occasions they do emerge, they do so purely to speak to the person that is really pulling the strings, sometimes to praise, but often to berate. When a client asks a difficult question, they defer to the person that is really running things, even if running things isn't reflected in their pay packet. The weight of the problems on site, from delays to staff morale, is slowly lifted from the shoulders of the site manager and heaped upon the shoulders of their most committed worker. That additional pressure comes from above, but pressure also seeps up from below. All too often, the passionate and committed worker takes younger and less experienced workers under their wing. They show them the ropes, the right way to do things. Some take those lessons in the manner they're offered, but all too often, that guidance is squandered and abused. Some young workers are quite happy to step aside and let their mentor do a task because they do it better. Meanwhile, they're staring at their mobile phone, or they're off in a corner somewhere having a cigarette. Just as frustrating, they'll sit on a site dumper watching the clouds roll by until do it again. Just as frustrating, they will sit on a site dumper watching the clouds roll by until they're told precisely what to do. They have no need to think for themselves because their self-appointed mentor is doing all the thinking for them. That mentor then becomes an unpaid trainer. Their machine is fitted with a new attachment or new operating system, so they spend night after night scanning YouTube and teaching themselves how to get the best from it. They're then expected to impart that knowledge to a group of people that have exactly the same access to YouTube, but who frankly couldn't be asked. When 5 o'clock rolls around, or when the proper working day is done, that self-appointed mentor is the last person to leave. While others are content to leave the site untidy and potentially dangerous, they'll go around and tidy up, getting ready for a clean start the following day. This happens once, twice, 3 times, and pretty soon it's the norm. No one bothers because they all assume, they all know that someone else will take care of it for them. In many instances, this is a perfect storm. A lazy site manager and a lazy workforce kept afloat by a single person whose passion and work ethic will not allow standards to slip, and who finds themselves used, abused, and exploited as a result. What does that say about the way in which sites are run and managed today? What does it say about the commitment and dedication of the modern workforce? And just as importantly, what does this do to the stress levels and the mental health of the person carrying the weight of an entire site and their project on their shoulders? And when that happens, when that person finally breaks, when they succumb to the pressure, now let me do that again because I've missed it. And what happens when that person finally breaks, when they succumb to the pressure, when the stress pushes them over the edge? I know what I did. I quit. I walked away and I left that magazine in the hands of the less committed and the lazy. That magazine, my baby, ultimately died. Let that be a warning. So there you are. Are you one of those that has stuff heaped upon them? Steve says, "Are you on this site, Mark? It sounds like you wrote the whole thing while you were there." No, I wasn't, obviously, but it's Steve, you're not alone. Listen, these are things that I hear all the time. And what surprises me, I mean, bearing in mind I am sort of one step removed, bearing in mind I just beat a keyboard for a living. Why is it that I'm aware of this and others aren't? I don't know. Don't know the answer to that. Jim, going back to what we were talking about before, yes, it's jaded, but if I buy a new machine in 2025, send it in for a full overhaul in 2035, my lad has it built in 2045. I've saved money, local farmer fitters have made money, but big business has made sod all. Same with agriculture. Farmer produces food, consumer buys it and eats it. Farmers make more money and consumer buys cheaper food. Now put all the middlemen in the equation and the farmer makes less and the consumer pays more. There you are. That's the maths as they really work. Thanks for that, Jim. Steve says, if you're a good, hard-working worker that takes pride in what you do, you're pushed to the limit. If you're a worker that takes an hour for lunch, doesn't give a toss, that will do. Who cares? Attitude will get it easier. In my eyes, it's all back to front. The wrong people are pushed and moaned at. That is, I mean, there are lots and lots of things there that I find frustrating. And that was one of the reasons that I use myself as an example. As I say, I was deputy editor, so I was answerable to an editor, and then I was answerable to a publisher. And of the three roles, I was earning the least. I was doing okay, but I wasn't particularly unhappy, but I was earning less than the two people that sat above me. If something, which it does, things go wrong, things run late, or things are printed wrongly, or whatever it might be. The way it's supposed to work is the editor is the ultimate arbiter. But when I was there, he wasn't, because the editor was off doing something else. So when there was a problem, something had gone awry, the magazine had run late, or it got late to the printers, or there'd been mistakes printed, and we'd had complaints about it. It wasn't the editor that took the rap. It wasn't the publisher. It was this guy. Even though I was doing the job of at least one of them, and in some cases, both of them. We see that exactly the same on site. The person that really does, they're the first on site, the last to leave. They're the ones that are teaching themselves via YouTube or via instructional videos of an evening. They're doing their level best to be the best that they possibly can be. And they're surrounded, by fellow workers who, why should I bother? He'll take care of it. And you've also got, as I say, senior site staff, site managers, project managers, who will just take a bit of a step back and, yeah, you crack on. It's a weird thing it's a weird analogy to draw. As you probably are aware, I am father to, 4 children, but 2 of them are twins, male and female. And my boy twin, developed as children normally do. He was, pretty quick to walk, and he was quick to speak as well. His sister, his twin sister, was very slow with both of those things, and particularly the speaking. And when we sought advice about it, it was a case of, why would he or why would she learn to speak when he does the speaking for her? If he wants a drink, he asks for a drink, she gets a drink. If he wants something to eat, he'll ask for something to eat, she'll get something to eat as a result. We've got sites full of those people. What, there's an open manhole cover there. Well, I could go and put the manhole cover back on, but I can't be asked. Somebody like Steve will do it. Steve will take care of it because he's good at that sort of thing. There's a bit of building hanging off there. I could probably do that tomorrow. It is a bit dangerous, but no, maybe my mate Paul will go and deal with that because I can't. What is it? It's 4:45, and the time I've got my high vis off and got my coat on, it'll be time to go home. So you end up carrying the can. Steve says, I'm so using that monologue on one of my videos soon. Help yourself, mate. It's there. Mick Norton, we haven't seen Mick for quite some time, but good to see you. Good morning, all from Wakefield. I was going to say sunny Wakefield. I can't remember ever being to Wakefield in the sun, but you never know. Dan says, I've been through it and traveling miles, no thanks and no acknowledgement. No. And yet, as I say, when things do go awry, when the one that I find most problematic, for a strange reason, but most problematic, client pays a visit to a site, check on progress or, check why something's running late. And the site manager will quite happily say, oh, I've been up to my eyes. Ask him. He'll tell you what's going on. Is that not your job? I mean, just to be absolutely clear, if your name is, or your project, your title is site manager, you'd have thought that managing the site would be a kind of a key consideration, wouldn't it? And yet you're deferring to somebody on the site, be it an excavator operator or an operative, somebody that is committed enough to actually have their finger on the pulse of the site. For one thing, how does that look to the client? What, you're the site manager, but you're getting me to speak to a digger driver. For one thing, is that a great idea? And how is it that the digger driver knows more about what's going on than you do? Like guys here work for Kias, just walking around and driving around and saying, where's your gloves? They don't know what's going on, and many are out of school. I don't want this to be anti-young person. There is a degree of that. You're out of school and, you consider, hang on a minute, let me get Dan out of the way. You consider that to be a part of your day, what's going on Instagram. I'll just check YouTube while I'm here. Or TikTok and or YouTube and Facebook. And I realise that's a key part, but that is not peculiar just to the younger generation. I see it on sites all the time. Old and young, male and female, just fanning around on their phone. Or they'll pop off for a fag for 45 minutes. I've never smoked, but I know for a fact it doesn't take 45 minutes to take down a cigarette. And yet that's what they'll do. And they're doing that because they know full well there's somebody working in the background, be it a Steve, a Jim, a Gary, a Ken, who's over there getting back to work, getting things done, doing their bit and possibly doing your bit as well. And they coast. That was the straw that broke the camel's back when I was on PMJ. Obviously, the very fact that it didn't happen once, it happened multiple times. But I literally sat there and read an entire magazine from front to back and realised that every single word in that magazine I'd written, that nobody else had done anything. So that kind of set the scene. But the bit that that really broke the straw that broke the camel's back was I'd been in negotiations with Kent Police, Kent County Constabulary, who were having a real drive on things related to plant theft. So we agreed between myself and them that we would start to produce a monthly column. These are the items of plant that have been stolen, complete with descriptions, serial numbers where we had them, and so on down the line, to try to recover machines. This is way, way, way before the Caesar scheme and data tag and all of the clever stuff that we've got now. This was very, very early doors. Anyway, it proved hugely successful. We recovered a few machines and everybody loved the idea. Come the end of the year, our entire editorial team were taken down to the Grand Hotel in Brighton as a thank you. Hard work, great magazines this year, well done. I didn't realize this, but they were giving awards. And at one point, the publisher stood up and he said, we've had a great initiative working with the Kent County Constabulary, and, we've helped recover machines. So we'd like to invite up to the stage to collect the award my boss. My boss had nothing whatsoever to do with it. So I sat there and I thought, well, he is the editor. That's the way it works. And he went up and he went, thank you for the award. It's been long time coming, and we've done a lot of hard work, but thank you. Not a word about me, the fact that I'd done all the work, not a dicky bird. And at that point it was like, that's it, that's me done. I think that was around about April time. By June I was gone, even though I was about to get married. Jim Turner says, I don't mind doing whatever and going above and beyond the norm, but I expect better pay and certain perks. If I don't get my own way, I retract to the same level as a standard employee to show all the gaffers how much more I normally do. And it stays that way until I get what I want. I'm a very straight and direct person. I don't mind telling my employer how I feel towards their treatment of me. I come from an older generation. And maybe this is an overly simplistic thing here. If I don't get my way, I retract to the same level as a standard employee. I was raised, and I'm sure a lot of you were as well, that there wasn't these things weren't an option. You had a job and you did that job to the very best of your ability, or you didn't get to keep the job. And I'm even talking about things like, my first means of earning money was a paper round. I was at school, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, ride round to the local newsagents on my bike, pick up a bag of newspapers, and I'd go out and deliver those newspapers. And as far as I was concerned, I was delivering them as quickly as I could, trying to get exactly the right newspapers in the right holes. They were marked up, but, trying to put the right newspapers through the right letterbox. I'd get back to the shop so that if somebody hadn't turned up and there was another round to be done, if I had the time, I'd go and do that as well, because that's how I was raised. And I mentioned my dad and I mentioned work ethic, but this was never a thing that was taught. He and I never had a sit down and he said, right, okay, today is the day we're going to talk about work ethic. And it was just inherited. It was instilled. My dad would be, I didn't used to see my dad first thing in the morning, and oftentimes I didn't see him in the evening either. He'd be gone before I got up, and he didn't get in until I'd gone to bed. So, my dad was weekends, if I was lucky. But that kind of trickled down, it percolated down so that, as I say, I said in that piece, I used to mock him for it. You do nothing but work. You got no fun, get yourself married, get yourself a couple of kids, get yourself a mortgage, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing the same. And I don't, just to be absolutely clear, I've got no issue with hard work. I actually admire people that work hard. It's very easy to look at. I'm going to slip back to a football analogy. Somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo. He's probably a billionaire at this point. He's won everything. He's played everywhere. He is probably the best player to ever grace a football pitch. But he has worked harder than anybody. If anybody remembers when he was at Manchester United, early doors, He was very young, very skinny, very fast, but very skinny, a bit weak, a bit feeble. And he basically was told, you need to beef yourself up, you need to be stronger and more rugged and more resilient. So by the time he left from Manchester United to go to Real Madrid, he'd employed his own fitness coach and his own nutritionist. You see Cristiano Ronaldo now, he's 40 years old. He is, to use the modern parlance, he is ripped to shit. You could grate cheese on his abs. This guy is a supreme athlete, and that is all self-made. He decided that to be the best that he could be, he would basically rebuild himself. I'm not expecting anybody to go away and do, 1,000 sit-ups a day, but lots of you guys, and I'll use Steve as an example. Steve is a perfect example. He has been very quick to adopt things like GPS and driver aids and tilt rotators and all of the things. Nobody has taken him to one side and said, in order to survive in the future, Steve, you need to embrace all this. He's looked at it. He's decided this is the way the market is going, and he's taken it away, and he's taught himself. He's spent a lot of time on social media, learning how systems work. He's now basically giving back. He is on social media, telling people how these things work. And look at the life. I know he was struggling a bit on Monday this week because work all came on top of him. But you think about what Steve's done over the past few years. He's been operating for the entire week at Bauma. He's been to Las Vegas for ConExpo. He did Intermat over in Paris because of his additional commitment. He wouldn't have got that if he'd have been one of these. He wouldn't have done it if he'd been tucked over in a corner just having a fag for an hour. But my guess is that Steve and lots of other people as well, if you look around the site now, there is probably 1, 2, half a dozen people who basically are doing absolutely nothing. And they're doing it partly because you're doing something. Yeah. Peter McKenna says, there's a young lad driving diggers for Foxplant on YouTube, and his work ethic is better than some of the older blokes I've worked with on site. Yeah. Yeah, I listen, we've seen a few of them ourselves. Ollie Guns is a fairly young guy. Ben Wade, Ben the operator, he's an absolute enthusiast. If he's not on a machine, he's learning about a machine. He's understanding a machine because he wants to be better and better at his job. And, if in the fullness of time he ends up running his own plant company, he'll have earned every bit of that, surely, because he's gone the extra mile. Peter says, no one in any industry is appreciated fully anymore, all just a number on a computer. It's time that changed in construction haulage are similar in ways. Yeah, I agree with that. And I also wonder about it goes back to when I was saying about the management. If your exposure to the management of your company is the site manager will tell their boss, everything's hunky-dory. I've been putting in all the hours that God sends. I've got everything running like clockwork. No problem at all. When in actual fact, the person below them, or possibly below the person below them, is doing all the hard work. Because everything is done remotely now. We don't actually have people walking the site, be it site manager, project manager, or even like a regional manager, popping by and making sure everything's okay. We've lost that, and no amount of telematics and in-cab systems sending information back to a head office is going to cover that, unless somebody actually takes the time to compare and contrast. Imagine. And I've said this about gamification in the past. Imagine if let's say there's half a dozen machines. I was going to say excavators, but half a dozen machines. There's a dumper, there's a telehandler, there's a couple of excavators, mini excavator or whatever it might be. So there's half a dozen machines on the site. It's not beyond the wit of man for somebody in a head office to look at the telematics pouring out of those 6 machines and say, well, that guy there, Steve, was on his Volvo for 9.5 hours. And he's moved that much material and he's used that much fuel and so on down the line. And then we've got Bob over here on the mini excavator. He only seems to have done half an hour's work. Now, Bob may have been at the dentist. He may have arrived late. His machine may have broken down. But surely having that level of information and data at your disposal, surely somebody should be saying, well, that doesn't stack up. Now, I'd like to think that if somebody did actually do that, they would then go back to Steve on his Volvo and say, you deserve a bonus, mate. We've seen how you've been working. The truth be told, what they will actually do is either have a quiet word in Bob's ear or send Bob down the road because he's not pulling his weight. But either way, at least that levels the playing field. Peter says in both sectors, machine drivers and HGV drivers down tools in both industries would be bollocksed until they started working again, hold the country to ransom. I think the haulage industry has probably got a better chance of doing that because a lot of what happens in demolition and construction kind of happens behind closed doors. But yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point. To be honest, I do similar to Jim. If not acknowledged, I walk and go elsewhere. Sometimes I feel I've got a great company. It all goes downhill after a few weeks. Isn't that the way, though? Fun enough, we were talking about this earlier today, and I can't even remember what started, but my wife was saying, she's a member of something or other. I can't even remember what it was. She's a member of something, and she's paying, I don't know, whatever it is, 20 quid a week for her membership. But if you're a new starter, you get your first 3 months for nothing. And Sky TV do that. If you've got the full package, you're paying, I don't know, 120, 130 quid a month. But if you sign up today, you'll probably get a couple of months for nothing, or you'll get a couple of months half price. It is that desire to please the new and sod everyone else. That happens a lot. It's a horrible thing to say, but people now are so bloody thick as mince. Yeah. Do you know, I love the expression, by the way. I don't know if that's a Scottish thing, but I do like it. I may be using that at some point. I'm not even sure it's down to intelligence. I think there's a degree of that. I am staggered by the lack of intelligence in the world, not just in construction and demolition, but just generally in the world. But I do think that we, as a society, we're all quite keen to coast. You do just enough. And I don't even know why this has flashed into my head, but think about how you do your domestic recycling. We all know why we're recycling. And, there are some people that are, they wash out their tin cans before they put them in a specific bin for tin cans, aluminium cans. I'm showing my age. And there are others, it's like, well, I've got a pile of rubbish here. I've got a recycling bin and I've got a general waste thing. I'll put it in the general waste. I do think there are people that sometimes do just enough. And sometimes not even that. Dan says, and bear with me. Seen a guy yesterday, got up, put on his shoes, and guess what? They were two different shoes, the same colour. My wife's sister, after her father died a couple of months ago, went to the funeral director to make the necessary arrangements for the funeral. She had odd shoes on, and hers weren't even the same colour. She had a black one and a brown one on. In her defence, she had been in a bit of a hurry, but still. Now, here's a newcomer, Robert Darr. Robert Darr. I don't remember seeing Robert here, but Robert, good morning. How can you cover up something everybody in the world knew from the get-go? What is that related to? Not sure. But thank you very much indeed for being here. Peter says, I've gone to work with one steel toe cap boot and a trainer. Yeah, but you do have an excuse, don't you? You do have an excuse. Jim Turner, I've been on for the same crowd for over 10 years. I'm not going to presume they like me, but they know I make them money, so they tolerate the demands I've made over the years. Is that not... I don't want to do a football analogy again, because I have a nasty habit of doing that. But should that not be the norm? Should everybody not be doing their level best? And I accept the fact that there are some people whose best will not be as good as somebody else's best. I fully accept that. But if you are being paid to be at work, and they call me old-fashioned and stuff, if you're being paid to be at work and to do a job, are you not kind of bound morally to do that job to the very best of your ability? Surely it shouldn't be a case of, I'm here, but can't be asked today. Jim will do it. Steve will do it. I just, not feeling it today. When did that become a thing? That's, as I say, certainly not the way I was raised. Not the way I was raised at all. Anywho, I think that will probably do us for today. So a couple of things. No show tomorrow. Let me remind you very quickly. No show tomorrow. I'm at a funeral, which I'm not looking forward to one bit. But I'm at a funeral. But I am back on Friday. And I've got another... yesterday's where I was talking about the fact that the UK demolition industry has allowed its leadership to slip. I was going to say it proved popular. Popular is probably the wrong word. Lots of people have responded to it. Lots of people have read it. Not entirely sure popular is the word I would use. I've got another one of those for Friday. So if you are around, do please tune in. If you are one of those workers who are coasting right now, if you're I'm part of the problem here, people. If you are sat here watching this an hour and 2 minutes in, and you've basically taken the morning off just to watch this while other people are working around you, give your head a shake and get back to work. If you are one of those that is carrying the can for everybody else, have a quiet word, because you can't do it. You can't do all the things all the time. Sooner or later, Steve will tell you, sooner or later, it will come home to roost. In my instance, I told him to poke the job. In Steve's, he was exhausted mentally and physically on Monday. Don't get there. It's not worth it. It's just a job. And if that's how the job is treating you, get another one, because it's not worth it. All it does is pay your bills. That's all it does. Anyway, that'll do me. I'll see you on Friday. Have a fantastic day today. Have a fantastic day tomorrow. Think of me around about, this time actually, because that's when I'll be there. But I'll be back on Friday with yet more of the same. Thank you for your company. Thank you for all your input. I'll see you again very, very soon. Take it easy.